Welcome to If Only You Knew, where each week we take a deep dive into the careers and experiences of people from different backgrounds, cultures, countries, and ages to discuss pivotal moments in their lives and the lessons they have learnt along the way.
If they told people the truth, they wouldn't last very long.
Whether you're a school student, in an established career, mapping your academic pathway, searching for the perfect career, looking to change careers, or just plain curious, then this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Christy McCormack, and I want to ask you, what would you do differently if only you knew? With me today is Rose Reck. Rose completed high school in 2012, ventured out into the workforce, and then decided to go back to the books 5 years later to start a Bachelor of Business majoring in management and marketing. Welcome, Rose, and thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Fantastic. So you've just come off exam block for uni, so I bet you're glad that that's all over for another trimester.
Oh, I cannot tell you how relieved I am that it is done.
So you're on holidays now, or how does that work?
Yeah, I get 3 weeks off, and then my first day back is the 29th of June. So not as much time as I thought I was going to get, but a little bit of time is better than nothing. So.
Okay, so you are currently working full-time and studying. So yeah. What made you choose the degree that you went into?
So I was originally working as a project manager, and I thought that I wanted to continue in that career and that I would need the formal qualifications to be able to apply for better jobs at different companies. Whenever you look at their jobs on Seek, they're always asking for people to have a formal qualification. And then when I started looking at studying, I realized that there wasn't a bachelor of being a project manager or anything like that. So I decided to go for something that was a little bit more broad, which was the Bachelor of Business. And then I just sort of picked a major out of nowhere. I just went, I'll do management and I'll do HR to start off with. And then I got a little bit in and I realized that management and HR were almost the same thing. So unless I wanted to learn to speak 2 different languages, I wasn't going to be able to finish the course. So I just, I took all my HR units out and I changed it to marketing because I thought, there's always going to be a need for that. It's not going to disappear anytime soon. It's not going to be digitized so much that there won't be people working in that field. So that's sort of how I decided that in the end. But I just wanted something that was going to give me like a broad range of skills that I could build on later without necessarily committing to just one path.
So going back to school as a, air quotes, mature age student, in your mid-20s, why didn't you go straight to uni straight from school?
So I'd applied and I deferred for 12 months thinking that I would have a gap year and I was going to go pick fruit and travel around Australia and do that. And that obviously never happened. I ended up moving out of home, was living with a boyfriend, and then at that point in time I just thought I couldn't afford to do it. I couldn't afford to give up my job and go to uni full time, so I sort of gave that away. And I needed to work because he was an apprentice, so we were both earning pretty poor money. So yeah, it wasn't like I didn't feel like I had a lot of option to go to uni straight away out of school, so hadn't really settled on what I wanted to do either.
So what were your plans for when you were at school? Like, what did you sort of want to be when you grew up?
I was offered an apprenticeship as a tattoo artist. I was offered an apprenticeship as a chef, which I then decided I wasn't too keen on because it meant I would have to work nights and I would be missing out on all the fun because you'd be working Saturday and Sunday and Friday night when all your friends are having fun, you'd be cooking. In my submission, when I submitted to the universities at the end of year 12, I'd applied for some kind of Bachelor of Nursing at Griffith Uni. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. I looked through the catalogues and I thought, I'll give that a go. Why not? I'd applied for almost ridiculous things. I'd applied for a Bachelor at UQ, doing something that was majoring in event management, and it was all over the place.
So did you have any guidance at school as to what sort of path? Because they are completely different worlds apart fields. You're sort of talking about tattoos, chefs. Yeah. So what was your sort of guidance that you got when you're at high school?
I was OP bound in high school. So I'd always done OP subjects, and their focus very much was that you did the OP subjects, you did well, you got a good OP so that you didn't bring the school down. and they wanted you to apply, and there was a lot of pressure to apply to Griffith Uni because they had this partnership with Griffith Uni. We had pretty limited subjects as well because it was quite a small high school that I went to. So we didn't necessarily get to test a lot of things out. So I did home ec so that I could have a go at cooking, but that also meant I had to do sewing and all of the other stuff that I didn't really like so much. And yeah, it was kind of a hard one. I mean, luckily my mum stepped in and she talked me out of the tattooing apprenticeship.
So I'm pretty sure that you've got an aversion to blood, don't you? So nursing or tattooing probably wouldn't have been down your alley.
But I didn't actually know that until after I'd left school and I was in the workforce, and I was a first aid officer at a place, and I had a guy who'd severed his finger on a bandsaw, and he brought it to me and he went, "Oh, do you think I need stitches for this?" And I nearly passed out. So so yeah, I guess if you're not exposed to it, you don't know how you're going to react or how much you can actually handle. But now that I know that that's not a good path for me, I won't be, I definitely didn't end up taking that nursing course.
So just going back, just briefly back to high school. So OP, for everybody that doesn't understand and is not from Queensland, and I didn't understand it until a couple of years ago, that's your overall position. So that's a mark that you get to only be able to get into university. So I believe that you've either got the choice when you're in high school that you just graduate with your school certificate, or you go for your OP to be able to go into university, and obviously you would still get your school certificate in that instance. So at what point do you have to decide that you want to go down the university track and take OP subject?
It was at the end of year 10 where you had the choice. So I mean, you're 15, 16?
Pretty young,
and
really.
You're trying to decide, do I want to go to uni in 3 years from now, or do I want to pursue TAFE? And you may not have even had a job at this point in your life. You don't really have much experience in doing anything. And the OP system, to me, was fundamentally flawed because it was your average position in relation to everybody else. So if you went to a school and there was a heap of low performers and you were a high performer, then that just stuck to be you, because it meant that your OP would come down automatically to fall in line with everybody else. And if you were someone who was struggling and you were lucky enough to go to a school with a bunch of high performers, well, then you would be, bumped right up. But then your OP wouldn't reflect your actual level. So you'd be applying to university in 2 years' time and then struggling and not able to cope with the work. Or I think they've changed the system now, actually. I hope they have. I heard that they've changed
I've heard that this year Queensland has come into a line with other sort of states, but it was like that even when I was in high school and doing my high school certificate in New South Wales, that it depended on your school. So if your school average was great, then fantastic. You got brought up if you were a lower sort of achiever, and vice versa. If you were really outstanding and the rest of the school wasn't, it got brought down. So I'm not 100% where it sits now. I hope that they are, changing it so, people are able to get the positions that they deserve and that are accurate. Yeah. But who knows? It's our education system. So
I'd sort of found out, I was lucky I had older friends and people who had sort of gone to university already and already been through that ordeal. And I'd worked out pretty early in the piece that it actually didn't matter whether you went for an OP or if you just got your certificate, because you would end up with a rank, and your rank converted to an OP anyway.
Oh, okay.
And once you get in, you can get in and do anything. You can get in and do a Bachelor of Arts for 12 months. You do really, really well at Bachelor of Arts, and then it transfers over and it goes to your university ranking. And if you've got an amazing ranking, you can do anything. You get a rank of a GPA of like 5, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm done with arts now and I'm going to be a doctor. But it's probably a more accurate representation of your level of where you're at.
Absolutely.
Because it's based on your work. It's not based on how you fit in this spectrum of people.
Yeah. So how did you find the pressure at high school to achieve, an high OP or to take a particular pathway? Were they pushing any particular direction for you?
Yeah, they definitely pushed a lot of kids towards Griffith Uni, whether that was for a business or a nursing or a something degree. And they often sort of wanted you to apply for degrees that had lower OP scores, so anything that was around the 10, 15, 16 mark, maybe because they thought that was more achievable for most people, like to sort of apply for that average space instead of applying for the top and then letting your preferences roll down. which is something that I didn't really understand at the time when I was doing my applications. I just sort of thought, oh yeah, I'll apply to everything I like and I'll get accepted for, whatever I get a good OP for, and then I can just take my pick. And it doesn't work like that. You get accepted for the first one, that's it. Your application stops. They send you your offer, and then you go, oh, I didn't really want that one.
Yeah, so it doesn't seem like there's much explanation. I know as a parent who's just gone through, the whole OP process with my son, it's completely confusing. So I can imagine it would only be more confusing when you're going through that between, the ages of 15, 16, 17. What would your advice be back to the educational institutions on how they can make that process easier and help students?
Don't pressure them. Don't be having interviews with your low-performing students and asking them to swap from OP to rank because you think they're going to bring your average down. Support them. Give them some direction. Have a talk to them about the subjects that they're doing and move them into subjects that are more appropriate that will still give them that OP pathway, because it's going to save them 12 months at the end of the day. If that's what they plan on doing, give them some guidance and some help, and maybe a little bit of honesty as well. The school I went to, being quite small, they were supposed to be really big for their creative arts and all that sort of stuff. And I'm a creative kind of person, so that was my drawing point. That's why I chose to go to that school. And my mother hated it because I was at a separate school to my sister.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So she's driving to 2 high schools every day because we had different interests. My sister was really sporty and she wanted to go to the sports school, and I wanted to go to the nerd school with the creatives and the arty people. And we had a really small cohort. There was, I think, maybe only 100 kids, maybe less, that were in the senior year levels because so many kids had dropped out or decided it was too hard and it wasn't for them. And there was almost no choice. So all of their main focus were on the subjects that were going to draw the highest OP points, like your high level math and your high level science, which I'm not good at either of those things. It wasn't going to serve me any benefit to study those subjects and just pass or, get a really low mark. So I ended up choosing other subjects that really didn't appeal to me at all, but they were my next best option. So I studied law, I studied IT, I did advanced English and all that sort of stuff. So you kind of have to make the best of your situation, but definitely having more choice in what you can study at high school makes a difference.
From speaking to so many people just doing this podcast, it seems that there's a really big variance in the actual subjects that high schools offer. So so it's really dependent upon where you live, isn't it? And what high school that you end up getting to go to be able to sort of select that instant pathway out of high school. As you said, you can get in and change and do other things, and you can go and do a trade or, those sort of things. But it
all adds time.
Yeah, that's it. And how valuable is your time at that age?
Oh, you would rather be doing anything else. You just turned 18, your first year out of high school, you just turned 18. All these new experiences are open to you. So you've got your license and you're driving for the first time. You're really discovering your independence, and, you're making new friends, and you're maybe getting into the workforce, and you're starting to get a responsibility, and people are treating you like an adult now, and you're making your own decisions. And there's so much going on for you in that first year out of high school. And that's the time when you really do, I think, discover yourself and how you're going to behave as an adult, probably for the rest of your life. You've got all of these influences around you. You just want to get out there. You just want to explore. You're finally finished. You've just done all 12 years of study. So, I mean, for some people, for the smart people, they go, I'm not going to have a break. I'm going to go straight to uni and I'm just going to study. And if you're passionate and you know what you want to do, and you have all the drive and motivation in the world, go do that. Because if you leave, you take the chance that you may not come back.
So do you
get used to the money?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's probably the hardest thing for a student is to survive on, not much, and to see, your friends and people that around you have a lot more than what you have.
Exactly. When you are in that friend group and none of your friends have gone on to study and they've all just gone on and done jobs or done trades, and they're 23, 24 now, and they've finished their apprenticeships and they're earning really, really good money, and they've got all of this, disposable income, and you're sitting there going, oh, I've got to go to uni yet, and it's going to be 6 years before I'm earning minimum wage. And then, it's a much slower sort of ladder to climb. And at that time, you think that's the deal breaker. That's the thing that's going to stop you. You're just going to go and work, and you're going to work your way up. What you don't realize then is that those people hit their ceiling at 24, 25. they hit the maximum amount of income they're ever going to earn. Whereas if you go and you study and you do that higher education and you continue to build on that throughout your life and throughout your career, you never reach a ceiling. There's always going to be another opportunity, or, you know, an opportunity to earn more or to move to a different place. And you just end up opening so many more doors for yourself.
Do you think the 18-year-old Rose would have been able to do the university course that you're doing straight out of high school?
Intelligence-wise, I think yes. I don't think that the content of the course would have blown me away, but I don't think I would have been motivated or committed to it at that time. I think that I would have looked at my friends doing other things, and I just would have wanted to join in. I would have felt like I was being left behind in a whole different area. And my life at that point was so wild and so full of all these things happening and things to do and concerts and festivals and camping trips and everybody else who just had all of this free time, that I would have had a hard time saying no to my friend group and being like, no, I need to stay home and do an assignment this weekend. So yeah, I don't think that I would have committed to it the way I needed to.
So what's the main driver for you going to university? Like, what is that? What was the driver for you to go, okay, I've been working, I've been earning that money that everybody else is earning, but now I'm going to go into debt because universities are very expensive.
Yes.
You know, it's a huge investment in yourself to go to university.
Yeah.
So, you know, what was the main driver for you to say, I'm going to put this pressure on myself, I'm going to go into debt, and I'm going to go and do this for me?
Well, part of that was my sister gently bullying me. We lived together at the time, and she had a little boy. So it was just the two of us and her little boy. And we were just the three of us living together in this house. And she was working a retail job. She'd gone and done certificates in beauty and stuff. And she decided, I'm not having a bar of this anymore. I hate this industry. I hate waxing. You know, it's terrible. So she decided to go to uni, and she started studying accounting. And that was in 2017. So she was at uni for the first half of the year, and I was still just working at this stage. I had the job that I was in at the time. The boss had said to me, I'll pay for you to do some courses. We really want to get you trained up in all of these different areas. And they paid for me to do a certificate in health and safety. And then I wrote all of their health and safety programs. And he went, okay, thanks. That's nice. And I went, well, what about the next course? And he went, oh, well, we don't need anything right now. And I went, oh, well, if you're not going to invest in me, then I'm going to have to invest in myself. And I knew that I wanted to do something more, and I wanted to have more opportunities. And the only way that was going to happen was if I had that piece of paper that said, you're capable and you can do this stuff. So after a bit of bullying from my sister and a bit of a disappointment from the boss I had at the time, I just decided to enroll myself to start at the end of 2017. So I started in that second trimester, and I just gave it a go. And I thought, well, how bad can it be? And I had friends that were studying at uni as well, and a lot of them were studying online. So I already had an idea of how it was going to work. It was through having those conversations with them that I really came to understand how that debt was going to work and how the HEX system operates and when I have to pay that back and how that gets paid back. And a lot of that is really a grey area when you're looking at courses out of high school. You just see the price tag and go, oh my God, it's going to cost me $5,000 a subject. How can I afford to do that? I earn $400 a week making donuts. Like I did. So that cost factor shocked me. It scared me. I thought if I'm going to get a bill from the government and I have to pay all of this money and I can't even afford to really do anything at all, like we're barely covering rent and food and all of the other stuff that we're doing at the moment. So how can I afford to go to university and then give up my income? Having a good understanding of how HEX works, it's a debt, but it's not a debt. It doesn't affect you when you're applying for loans, or if you want to go and get a home loan, your HEX debt's not going to stop you from doing that. It's not one of those current liabilities, but it definitely does affect your tax.
So with the Australian higher education system, so just to explain for anyone listening internationally, basically you only have to repay your HEX or student loan when you start earning a certain amount of money, and it's a percentage of your income. So there's income bands that you have, and how much you have to pay back depends on how much you earn. So, yeah, it is a good system, I think, as far as repaying it, although it is still daunting, the actual total amount that you have to repay.
Oh, it's quite scary.
Yeah.
But in reality, it works out okay. It's, an extra percentage of my wage. Obviously, I earn a little bit less than what I would take home if I didn't have a HECS debt. But the difference is like $50 a week. And I've never seen that.
Yeah, that's
debt for so long. So I wouldn't know what it's like to have that extra $50 a week.
You chose to study with the University of New England. Why did you select that university?
At the time, when I was looking at studying, and I knew that I wanted to study online because my focus was to stay independent. I wanted to stay living out of home. I needed to, be able to still work. So I needed to study. I needed that flexibility to do it in my own time. And when I was looking at our local unis in Queensland, because you're in Queensland, they expect you to attend at some point, whether that's for a lecture, whether that's for some kind of group meeting on a Saturday where you have to go to the campus and meet up with people and do group assignments. And I'm not interested in that. I didn't want to go to the campus. I didn't want to have friends on campus. I didn't want a bar of it. I just wanted to be able to focus and do what I needed to do. And that would be the end of it. And I needed to be able to do that whenever it suited me, whether that was like midnight or if it was on a shift on my lunch break, at the gym. It just needed to be super flexible so that I would have enough time. And the job that I had at that time also demanded so much time from me. I would be working really late at night. I was working from home. We're working around the clock. You were constantly answering your phone. So you kind of just had to take your little snippets of time when you could get it. And UNE was one of the few unis that was offering a course that was completely online. There was no face-to-face. There was no having to go there to do anything, not even an exam. My exam centres is in Brisbane at the Greek Club.
Because, UNE is about 500 kilometers away from Brisbane, so it is a fair hike. Have you ever been to the campus there, or have you only ever done anything online?
I've only ever done it online. I did go for like a little trip down to New South Wales a couple of years back, and I've seen like the general area, so I know like in general the town and where it is, and the town itself is really cool. It's like it's stuck in time. All those little country towns just have their own little vibe to them, which is fantastic. So I am planning on going to visit the campus when I graduate. I would like to graduate on the grounds at UNE with the historical buildings and get the nice photo. But yeah, other than that, no, I've never been.
So I think it's absolutely fantastic that universities offer, online learning, because it really fits in with people's schedules and you're able to sort of work around it. How have you found it? What struggles have you had with doing everything online?
Maybe the flexibility is a double-edged sword, because you have all the flexibility in the world to study on your terms and when you want, but then you also need to be motivated to do that. And it's very easy to procrastinate and put things off when it's on your terms and there's nobody checking to your attendance or nobody who's making sure that you are present and doing something. So it's really becomes on you to turn up and to do the work and to do it completely, because there's no one checking. Nobody's holding your hand. If you fail, that's your problem. It's too bad, so sad. And that's the expectation at any uni, I think, that it's very much on the student to direct the work and the flow of the work and to make sure that you get through it at whatever pace suits you. So it takes a bit of trial and error, I think, to understand really how much time it's going to take you, because it's different for everyone. They give their recommendation of 8 or 15 hours a week, and that's not always the case. And you know that in yourself when you're, does it take me longer to read? Do I need to read that twice? Am I going to want to take notes and handwrite notes to learn this a little bit better? So, and sometimes you do. Sometimes you listen to a lecture 3 times. You didn't get it the first time, you try it again. So, and if the lecture goes for an hour, then, that's an extra 2 hours on your study week. So, yeah.
So how have you managed to stay motivated? What's your tips for staying motivated?
I think it's good to have people in your life that push you and want to see you do well, or even someone to be a little bit competitive with. My sister and I definitely compete a little bit. She's at a different uni to me. She's at Swinburne. But yeah, so it's good to be competitive with someone and to check in on her and say, hey, how you doing? Have you got an assignment due? I've got one due. Are you going to get yours finished? racer. And it's so stupid. And we're studying completely different things, but sometimes it's good, or sometimes it's good to call her and have a bit of an event. And she's studying accounting, so I've had to do some accounting subjects as part of my degree. So sometimes I'll call her when I get a bit confused. Hey, explain tax law to me. And she'll do it. And maybe sometimes you need somebody else to explain it in a different way or in different terms, or to break it down for you, and having a conversation with someone. But I think having an interest in the subject really helps you to be motivated when you sort of pick something and go, oh, that's actually quite cool, and I might use that. So, and marketing and management, there's always a behavioral component. So there's always lots of things about, psychology and how people behave and why they behave that way, which I find really cool. So I enjoy those bits. And, I kind of have a strategy because I have a bit of freedom in selecting how I do my subjects to some extent. So I always try and pair one I know that I'll like with one I know that I'll hate. So, so that I can do the one that I don't like, and I can struggle through it a little bit. And then when I get over it, I can switch to the one that I do like, and I can enjoy it for a little bit. So, now, I think knowing yourself and knowing your preferences helps.
Absolutely. So university, though, is not always just up to yourself. So I know a lot of universities love group assessments.
Oh.
Do you have group assessments, and how do you find them? Because I personally find them very difficult, not only just to do, but with the outcomes and being satisfied that everybody in the groups pull their own weight. So how have you found that?
Yeah, I don't do group assignments. I'm not much of a group worker in that way. I'm happy to be a contributor in a team, but as far as a forced group goes, for whatever reason, I just don't think it works. And I think it doesn't work even more in the online platform, because it's really hard to hold people accountable for their work and what they're doing when you're not seeing them face to face. It's so easy just to email somebody back and be like, oh yeah, I didn't feel like writing my part, so you guys can do it, and the assignment's due tomorrow, but whatever. And there's always going to be people like that in the group, in any group. Even group assignments in high school, there would always be people who would sit back and go, oh, well, the smart kids are on our team, so we don't need to do anything. It's not fair. And if they perform poorly, then that's a bad reflection on you. And that's also not fair, because if you could have done that assignment yourself and given it 100%, why should you fail? I'm not a fan of group assignments, but I've actually been really fortunate with UNE. Swinburne loves group assignments. There's 4 every semester. My sister is always pulling her hair out. Wow. I've been so fortunate in the group assignment department that the way that they've set them up with us in the past has been through the forums. So a lot of the time you must post to the forums, and you must contribute to some form of ongoing discussion, either by creating a thread or responding to somebody else, and all of that's accessible. But there's 300 people in the cohort that are doing the course, and the forum includes all of the online students as well as the on-campus students. So you're not just relying on that online community to be posting and participating in the course. It's also everyone who's on campus that's forced to do it. So that kind of opening that group assignment up so that everyone's involved, it can be a little bit painful because there's a lot of content to read through. So if you've got to write your assignment based on somebody's opinion or the discussion thread, then that could take you a long time to find something that's suitable. But at least you're not in that position where you're waiting on somebody else, or somebody else is really holding you back from doing what you need to do and being able to achieve a good mark in your assignment. I'm quite grateful for the way that they do set their group assignments up. One of the ones I've done in the past, we had like a closed thread where everyone had to post. And if you hadn't made your post, you got locked out and you couldn't do the assignment, which is good, because then it's fair. You didn't contribute in the start, now you don't get to finish.
That's awesome. So I know that the University of New England is very progressive, and obviously they're very progressive in their online studies, which is an attractant to you there. And they were one of only a handful of universities in Australia to implement trimesters back in 2011. Now, some universities in Australia have only just recently, in the last couple of years, introduced trimesters. But what are your thoughts on them? Because they can be a little bit of, as you said earlier with things, a double-edged sword, because you can finish your degree earlier with trimesters, but then there's also a lot more work to do within the year.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't think it makes my term any shorter. I think I just maybe get less break in between. So when everyone else is having 3 months off over summer, I'm doing my last trimester. But for me, that was a selling point because it meant that I could continue studying and not lose that momentum. Because if I did 12 months and then I get 3 months off over Christmas and I'm living my best life and I'm going out and I'm seeing my friends and my friends get used to seeing me all the time, then there becomes that pressure when you try to go back to uni again. People are still hassling you. Hey, I saw you last week. Well, no, I've got uni work to do now. I don't have time for that anymore. So I think maintaining that momentum all year long is actually good for someone like me that, would quite easily slip into a new pattern and then maybe lose motivation or find it really hard to get back into that routine. And I even find when I get my short breaks, or I've only got 4 weeks off or 3 weeks off, I'll continue to do the same behavior. So I'll go to the gym and I'll do my gym like I normally do. And then I come home and I do dinner and then I'll read and I'll just pick any old book. But I'll continue to do that behavior so that it is my habit and it doesn't become something else like me sitting on the couch watching movies, eating chips for 3 hours, which could happen. I think I'm so much a creature of habit that part was good for me to be able to maintain habit all along. And it cuts like 3 years off. I mean, it's only going to take me 4.5 years to do a degree that full-time would have taken me 3 or 4. So I think that's amazing. And when you stretch it out and it takes you 7 or 8 years to do your degree, well, I almost feel like what's the point? Because by the time you're finished and you finally got your piece of paper, all of that stuff you learned at the start, that's changed. It's not relevant anymore. It's being updated. So, the skills you're trying to keep rolling over here are just sort of slipping away on the other end.
So how did you weigh up the time investment? Because obviously, doing a degree part-time, even though it's not a huge amount longer for you, it is longer. So how do you decide how much of a study load to take on each trimester, especially given that you work full-time as well?
Well, the first trimester I just thought I'll try 2 and I'll see how I go. I had a friend that was working and studying. She was doing 2 subjects. That sort of seemed to be the general idea was that people would do 2 at a time, and that somehow seemed to be manageable. So I thought, okay, well, I'll try 2. And you have a census date. So you get like your first 3 or 4 weeks of uni and you can do all the content and do everything you want to do. And if you get to census date and you go, the workload's too much, I'm struggling, I can't finish, you can drop out without being penalized. It doesn't affect your grades. You don't get billed for the subject. You just drop out and you pick it up somewhere else. So I thought, well, I'll start with 2. I'll have a look. I'll see how I feel about it. And if I get to census date and I'm struggling, I'll drop 1 and then I'll just do 1. But I ended up coping okay with 2. So I generally do 2. Except for Christmas last year, I decided to do 1. I had a difficult subject that I was dreading and I've been putting it off. It's a level 300 subject, so it's a little bit harder than like your introductory stuff. And it was on business statistics. And math is not my strong point. I think we all know that. And I'd done some statistics-based stuff earlier when I'd done all my economics. So I knew I was going to struggle. So I thought I'll just do this 1 on its own and then I can focus on it. And it was good over the summer because, that's the time of year where people want to see you. There's events, there's Christmases, there's parties, there's, everyone's getting together, and then there's New Year's. And it's just this big rolling thing of everyone wanting to get together and do things. So it worked out well to only have 1 subject to stress about. And it's maybe cost me an extra 3 months. But in the grand scheme of things, it's okay because they actually aren't offering, now that I'm at the end of my degree, they're not offering that many subjects for me over Christmas anymore. There's only like a limited number of subjects they offer in that last trimester. So all the easy ones go into the end, which you don't realize. You just think I can do my subjects whenever I feel like. No, some of them are only offered on even number years or odd number years, which I realized this year when I was doing my enrollment. Wow. And I panicked and went, oh my God, I've got to change all of my plan around because I hadn't actually thought about whether or not the subjects would be available. I just assumed they would be all the time. So that's a thing to watch.
Is that sort of set out at the start of your degree? Because obviously people are doing different subjects throughout years. So do they just decide that at the start of the year what they're going to offer, or do you get pre-warning earlier than that?
They have a course catalogue which you can access through the website. And I'd saved it all at the beginning, and I've got like a spreadsheet that I tick off when I've done each course and my credit points, and it's my check sheet that I've done everything. And so you do your low-level stuff first and all your prerequisites, and then you start doing your electives. And if you click into each one of the electives individually, it will tell you if it's only available on odd or even number years, or whether or not they're planning on offering it in trimester 3, but only for that year. So sometimes you take a little bit of a gamble of, is that going to be available next year in trimester 3? You don't really know. So you might have to do a bit of a shuffle. But, you know, if you're willing to be flexible with your subjects, and there's always a heap of choice. I mean, sometimes you have to do stuff that you don't really care about or you're not all that interested in just because that's what's available. I mean, I did some international historical business studies that I wasn't particularly interested in at the time. It ended up being okay. I did okay in the subject. I got to watch a couple of cool little movies about Margaret Thatcher and Hitler and all of that sort of stuff. It ended up being super, super political. And I didn't have like a political interest at the time, but now I know, so it's there. Yeah, so I mean, sometimes you just have to pick a subject that you kind of like, oh, sure, just to keep it rolling so that you're not sitting and waiting for something else to be available, because that's just going to take you more time.
So did you find it harder to be motivated for the subjects that you didn't really want to do?
Yeah, definitely. It makes it harder to want to commit time to it, but you know that you need to do it. So you just do, I suppose. And because it's habit for me, I know that that's my habit and that's what I do. So it just sort of becomes that routinized thing. So even though I may not particularly want to spend my gym session listening to this lecture, I do it anyway because that's my habit now.
I'm not sure how I'd go doing a gym session. To a lecture.
I usually will sit on the bike. I just sit on the bike for 45 minutes. I'll watch the lecture, and then I feel like I'm doing something. Because I find the gym kind of boring anyway. So
so it keeps you busy.
Exactly.
Now, speaking about busy, you have a really busy day job where you've progressed quite quickly, and you're an asset to the team that you work with. How do you think your career has set you up for university, and conversely, how do you think doing university has helped you in your current career?
I think that for me, a lot of the career path that I've followed so far has been centered around organization, organizing people, organizing time, and that time management, which is probably the most crucial skill to studying and doing self-directed study especially. So for me, I think that kind of habit of using a diary, having that Outlook program, being really good with the computer, using a computer all the time, getting exposure to different apps and different programs, and just being in and around whatever it is that's going on. And then you also, the degree that I'm doing being business management marketing, you have that broad exposure as well. So you get to sometimes practice those skills, and you also get to engage with people that are experts in those fields and ask their opinions and have conversations with them. And generally people are really happy to share knowledge with you. They're really happy just to have a chat with you and tell you something or explain something to you. Even my boss is really good with accounting, and I could ask him accounting questions and he'll explain the whole concept to me. He'll draw out the accounting tree and how assets and liabilities get divvied up. And when I first started and I didn't really have any of that knowledge or understanding, it was really cool to be able to see it visually instead of just reading it out of a textbook. So I think that you've got something to learn everywhere. In any job that you do, whether you think it's your career job or not, you still have something that you can learn, whether that's from the people that you work with or the experiences that you have. It definitely transfers everywhere. It's like a bilateral. It definitely goes both ways. You're learning stuff from them. You're also learning skills that you can come in and you can apply. And being able to use those skills that you're learning keeps them current and stops them from sort of just wasting away into nothing. So I actually think it's good.
You sound like a really organized person, but how do you prioritize work, life, and study? Like, do you have one that wins out over the other, or do you just try to give a balanced, equal time and approach to each?
I guess I do try to prioritize. And I use a diary. I have an old school paper diary. At the start of every semester, I go through the whole of the subject content and I work out exactly what I need to do. The first thing I do is print my assignments out. So I know exactly what my assignments are before they even pop up. I put reminders in my diary 1 week and 2 weeks until your assignment is due so that they come up for me. So when I'm looking at stuff and my friends are saying to me, oh, let's go away for the weekend or let's do this for an entire day, I can kind of look at my diary and go, I've got 1 week until my assignment's due. and I'm this much through it. No, I'm not going to go. I need to prioritize my uni work. I also like to get things done early. So I tend to, if they open the subjects up early, I'll start having my read through early. I might, if I meet all of my requirements for the week, I might start on the next subject instead of just having some relaxed time. So, but I also try to divvy it up so that I have to do a little bit every day. So if you do 2 or 3 hours every day, that's one subject completely done for the entire week. And then you've only got one more subject to do. So if you do tiny little bits every day and you break it up, then you end up having more time on the weekend. And I'll try and leave a day free for me so I can do whatever I want to do, whether that's go and see my sister or my nephew or plan a trip or go to the beach or whatever. And that's good to have that time where you just do something for you as well. So
yeah, how important do you think me time is through all this?
Oh, so good. It is important because it helps you to refocus. You can sit there for as many hours as you like and continue to stare at that page, but you're not going to understand it any more than you did 15 minutes ago if you've lost your focus already. So if you aren't getting something, instead of continuing to struggle and get frustrated at it, walk away from it. Go for a shower, go for a jog, come back to it later with a fresh mind, and then look at it again, and it'll click. It's one of those things that people ask me, oh, you're going to cram for your exams. No, I never prep for my exams. I'm not going to sit there before my exam and panic myself and try and learn the stuff I should have learned 10 weeks ago. If I haven't learned it by this point when I'm sitting here ready to do my exam, it is not going to sink in right now. And I don't understand. Maybe that method works for some people, but for me, if I haven't already grasped an understanding of what I need to do, then I'm not going to get it in the next 15 minutes. I'm not going to stress myself like that. I'm just going to sit, I'm going to have my drink, and then I'm going to walk in nice and calm. So
do you find the pressure of exams difficult, or do you sort of take that approach where I'm just going to, if I've not done it or if I've not learned it already, that's it. All I can do is the best.
That's all you can do. Your exam is too late to change anything. I feel more pressure with assignments because you have that opportunity to have regrets. You can reread it, and I never reread something after I've submitted it because by then it's already too late, and whatever you pick up is just going to bother you. Usually I'll finish an assignment and then I'll leave it for 2 or 3 days, and I'll come back to it and I'll read it again the next day, and I might even ask somebody else to read it over for me because sometimes other people can pick up spelling mistakes or grammatical errors or just something that you've completely missed because you've read it so many times, you know what it should say. So you just sort of think that it says that, but it doesn't sometimes. Seeking that other feedback is sometimes really good. And if it saves you or, increases your mark by a couple of points, then fantastic. That's what you want it to do. So, yeah, I let the assignment stress me out more. And for me, the way that the uni structure kind of works, your assignments mark your first 4 weeks and then your next 4 weeks and then your last 2 weeks are the focus of the exam. So all the stuff you've already written and learnt and 100% and you've done all of these assignments about them, that stuff is like well and truly in your head. The stuff that you're going to slip up on is the stuff that you've learnt in that last 2 weeks. And that's the main stuff that they're testing. They've already tested you on the other content. They know that you know it. You might get a couple of multiple choice questions just to check you didn't cheat, and that's it. So understanding how that exam structure is going to work sometimes helps. You can actually log in on the UNE website. When you log in as a student, you can actually view your subjects and you can view past exams. So you can see the kind of questions that they've asked previously. And sometimes if I'm feeling a bit nervous about a subject, I'll have a little squiz or look through the previous exams and get an idea of what kind of questions they asked and how they set it up. And obviously your exam's not going to be the same, but you can get an idea of the sort of things they're asking or the kind of topics they're covering. But yeah, for me, exams, I just want to walk in, I'll sit down, I'll do exactly what I can do, and then I leave and answer the easy questions first. Always answer the easy ones and the ones that you're like, yeah, I know that. Do that first and then struggle over the hard stuff later because you don't want to be struggling your whole exam on the hard question and then they go 10-minute warning and you realize you haven't answered any of the easy ones that you know.
No, that's good advice because I think a lot of people would sort of, try to get the hard ones out the way so then they can just flick through the easy ones at the end when really
just do the easy ones. Get those easy marks and get them finished because even if you don't finish your answer to the hard one that you're struggling with, you're going to get partial points for trying. If you're completely stumped just write some stuff out. Write down the stuff that you do know about that question and make it look like it was a draft. Like, this is where I've started writing something. And it shows that you have some comprehension, and it gives them something to mark, because something's better than no submission at all. So even if you just start writing down, okay, this is about personality traits, and these are the things that I know, the hierarchy of needs and this, that, and the other. And then they can look at that and go, okay, well, there's some thought here. It's not just I've left it. It's like your math exams. When you do a math exam in school, they don't always just mark the answer. Whether or not you got the answer right doesn't actually matter. It's how you got there. Do you actually know the process to get there? And if you can do the process and work it all out and make some sense of it, even if your answer is wrong, you're going to get half a mark for having the process. So definitely do that.
And so once an exam's done, obviously it's done, and once your assessment's handed in, there's not anything that you can do to change it. But how tough are you on yourself when you get those results back?
Oh, if I get a good, what I think is a good result, if I get 80 plus, I'm happy. If I get less than 80, I'm reading the comments. I want to know the comments. I want to see the red bits. I want to know where I got pulled up. Sometimes it's really silly stuff. I think I've only had one assignment. I got one that come back at 65 and I was devastated. I was completely devastated. I only need 50 to pass. So it's passed. It definitely passed. But it's one of those things where I felt like, oh my gosh, it was too close. It was too close to being a fail. Like, if I make the same mistake again, they're going to mark me even harder and I might fail next time.
Did that make you more motivated when you got that lower mark?
It did. I definitely spent a lot more time on the second assignment. So normally you do one and then you have a second assessment piece. And that second assessment piece, I spent a ridiculous amount of time on it. I made Trent read it twice. And I ended up doing quite well on the second assessment piece. So that was lucky. But part of it was a format I hadn't used before. It was an annotated bibliography. And I didn't even know what that was. I had to Google it. I felt like I was stabbing around in the dark a little bit. So I got pinged a lot. You kind of lose points for your setting out and, things like the size of your text and all of that sort of stuff. And most unis have a standard, but sometimes your lecturers will set different standards. So, and that's up to you to go in and read the forums and make sure that they haven't set out something else. And for this particular subject, I've been using APA style referencing for the last 3-4 years, however long it's been. And this lecturer only likes Chicago style referencing. So I lost marks big time because I referenced using the wrong system because it was a thing. So whoops.
So where do you think this degree is going to take you? What's the plan for Rose?
That's a hard one to answer because I don't necessarily have a set plan. Mm-hmm. I don't sort of have like I'm going to finish my degree and I'm going to work for this company. I'm going to do this job and they're going to pay me this much money. I'm kind of happy just to float a little bit and to see what opportunities come up. And I would like to think that that's going to be something that's going to have some room for a bit of creativity, and it's something I can have some fun with and I can really enjoy and really get to be me and use my skills and do all of those amazing things. Just something that I can grow with is what I'm thinking. I don't want to feel like I'm stuck or I'm trapped somewhere, or, that you're sort of in this position where your tasks are becoming menial and every day is looking the same. So I would like to end up in some kind of position that would give me that creative time and that variety. So yeah.
And how much longer have you got until graduation?
My final exam period will be in October of next year, and then I have to apply to the uni and they should approve me to graduate in the December ceremony of next year, so 2021.
Not far off.
Will be good. Very excited for that. So
all right, so I think I've grilled you enough today, Rose, and I really thank you for all the insights that you've given into uni life. And I'm sure that, many people that are thinking about perhaps going back to uni and doing what things that they want to do will be able to take the things that you've said and apply them into their own lives. But I do have a final question for you. Mm-hmm. What would you do differently if only you knew?
I think I would have spent more time thinking about myself and what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be and what interested me, instead of spending time being concerned about what other people thought and what those people were doing, what those people were thinking and how they were spending their time. Because if I'd have spent more time reflecting on me and investing in me, I would be in a different position now. I could have finished my second degree by now. It could have been completely different. Although I don't regret my choices, I know that, those choices have shaped the person that I am now, and they've provided me with skills that I probably would not have learnt anywhere else. And I think that that's super valuable, but it's not necessarily the easiest path. So if you have the opportunity to stay at home, your parents aren't rushing for you to leave and give them some space back. Live at home as long as they'll let you. Soak it up. Let them pay them board. You'll never live that cheap again, ever. So, if you were dedicated, you know what you want to do, and your parents are happy for you to live at home for an extra 4 years, go to uni. Just do it. Even if you study online and go and get yourself a little job so that you can have those life skills and get that work experience, great. But definitely take advantage of your parents if they're willing to look after you.
All the parents listening and going, no, go out.
Well, even if you go out, just don't go out on your own. Be smart. Get a couple of housemates together, people who are like-minded, and surround yourself with the people who are going to motivate you to do great things. Get into that group. Go and live in student accommodation with other students and other people who are living in that life cycle. Not the people who are earning what seems like fantastic money and they're living their best lives. You don't need that kind of encouragement. You need the encouragement to do your work and to enjoy life in that other way. Surround yourself with those positive people that are going to continue to motivate you, and that's probably the most important thing.
Absolutely, I think that's great advice. And look, we wish you the best in finishing that degree, and I can't wait to see the pictures of you in the building at UNE holding up that certificate. So best of luck, Rose, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
For more information about our guests or our show, visit ifonlyouknewpodcast.com.au.